Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Skyrim. My name is Camel, but more importantly, welcome back to the Curating Curious Curiosities series for a long-awaited new episode. In this video today, I will be curating to you the curious curiosities that can be found within Solstheim. Now before we get cracking, timestamps for each of the curiosities in this video can be found down in the description and in the comments. Down there are also links to my other Curating Curious Curiosities videos, and my social media links. Be sure to check all of that out. So Solstheim, it's the last bastion before the Sea of Ghosts and the long-lost continent of Atmora to the north. The frost-bitten kingdom holds many mysterious and gorgeous secrets alike, many of which are unexplained and only ring through folklore. Solstheim is only playable with the Dragonborn DLC and is a massive region to explore, so much so that this will undoubtedly be the largest CCC video for Skyrim. Solstheim was also originally introduced with the Blood Moon expansion for the Elder Scrolls III Morrowind. It was once an untouched gem of raw and primal nature, with thick forests to the south and frozen wonderlands to the north, steeped in mystery and ancient intrigue. The north is home to plains of permafrost and mountainous ice shelves, whitewashed with cold winds and dotted with ancient interests. While the northern regions of Solstheim remain relatively the same, now, 200 years later, the south, on the other hand, has been bastardized, disfigured, in blast waves of pyroclastic gas, unleashed by the eruption of Red Mountain on Vvardenfell, Morrowind. The once pristine pastures of wild, deep green forests, capped with white snow, are now rendered grey, scarred, and scorched. Trees bent and stripped, bosks burnt and sundered in the ashen shadow of the mockingly fiery skyline that so beautifully frames the towering transgressor, Red Mountain. Now, the geography of the island bears similar traits to both Vvardenfell and Skyrim. Solstheim is divided into 4 regions: Felsard Coast to the northeast, Herstang Forest to the southwest, Izinfia Plains running from the southeastern coast all the way up through the middle, where it meets the Moesring Mountains, which comprise the northwestern reaches of Solstheim. In the 16th year of the 4th era, after the devastating cataclysm that was the eruption of Red Mountain, which nearly destroyed the Dunmer culture, the High King of Skyrim gave the island of Solstheim to be used as a home for the surviving refugees of Morrowind. So not only has the landscape been reforged to a more Dunmeri one, but the culture and population have been transformed from ancient traditional Nord and the more modern imperial culture to an almost purely Dunmer one. Not only that, but its population increased drastically, and the racial balancing is now greatly Dunmer as well, with the new Dark Elves calling Solstheim home and the ashen pillaging of Solstheim's great forests. A large amount of alien Vvardenfellian fauna now calls Solstheim home as well, such as netches, ashhoppers, and even a silt strider. Some of Solstheim's original wildlife have been transformed along with the wilderness, such as the burnt Spriggans and ashspawn. Mother Nature molested by the molten fury of the Red Tower, once the Bastille of Lorkhan's heart and Daggerthur's citadel. Solstheim has been defaced and violated by the shattered bones of Sakrostruma, as Red Mountain is known in Dovazul, the Dragon Tongue. Luckily, to the north, the traditional fauna, flora, and creatures remain mostly untouched, with the populations of Riekling, bristleback, werebears, werewolves, deer, bears, wolves, saber cats, snow foxes, Spriggans, and hawkers living as if nothing had changed. All of this mixed in with a new underlying threat of Hermaeus Mora and the return of the first Dragonborn, Miraak, Solstheim has never seen darker days. But with these drastic changes and darkness comes an array of uniquely curious things to find across the island of Solstheim. So now we know exactly where we are exploring. Without further hesitation, let the curation begin. For this first curiosity, we have Reaver's Folly, found in the mouth of the bay that Raven Rock is housed in, a seemingly uninteresting island at first, until we are coaxed closer by the waggling tattered flag atop the small burnt knoll. Down by the shore we can find a boat with a few sacks and crates, both inside and next to the vessel. But on top of the boxes is a pickaxe, suggesting that whoever was here came here to mine something. Bitcoin perhaps? Who? Well, this question will be answered promptly, as at the base of the basalt cliffs is a hard stone deposit, a rare and sought-after mineral, undoubtedly what the miners came here to harvest. If we head up the hill, we'll spot some alarming signs. There were clearly people set up here to camp, and they are still here, just not alive. Yes, that's right, this group of Reavers met their fate on this small island. Along with their treasures we can find an apothecary's satchel, a chest and a strongbox, all of which contain random leveled loot. But what happened here exactly? How did these Reavers die? Well, if we make our way onto the island, we'll soon discover the culprits. Yes, ashhoppers, which will fittingly hop out of the ground and be very hostile. While they look quite squashable, ashhoppers can be a menacing and dangerous adversary if it has the element of surprise, which it often does. Too bad these Reavers chose to mine on an island already claimed by the ashhoppers. But for now, let's just hop along. Heading south, now we have a rather sad find, and one we have explored more in depth before. It's Hroldulf's last stand. On the map we can see that it can be found here to the south of Hroldulf's house on the coast. As we approach this location, we'll see a figure standing and soon distinguish that this is not a person, but a Spriggan, the elegant woodland mother, a creature of nature and the forest that has been set aflame, and is now trapped within a smouldering prison. Its very own body. A clear reminder that Red Mountain melted and mutated the fauna to match the smelted ecosystem. A sad sight, but to make it even worse, down by the water we'll notice a small boat and a body lying on the shore, face down in the volcanic sand and ash. A suspiciously underdressed man, considering we are on Solstheim, a very cold place to the very far north. Maybe he's a werewolf, they often tend to dress this way, although that conclusion is unlikely, as on the ground next to him is a broken axe, along with pools of his blood. So if he was a werewolf, surely he'll just use his beast form and his big wolf hands over using an axe. In regards to his death, it would appear that this burnt Spriggan is the one that killed him, still protecting her part of the forest despite it now being a blasted wasteland. Next to him there is a chest and a strongbox, both of which will contain loot reflected by your character's level. So far, this is quite a strange find. Even after searching his body, there are no clear signs as to who he is or why he is here. Now if we head north, there is the location known as Hroldulf's house. Inside the depths of the basement we can find his dead lover, Bjornofir. On his corpse there is a letter to Bjorn which reads as follows. Bjorn, do not come to this place, I have not much self left. The earth will take us both. H. Now as mentioned before, there is a much deeper story to this all, and it turns out that Hroldulf and Bjornofir are actually the only confirmed same-sex couple in Skyrim. I do have a full video exploring their mystery more in depth if you are interested, but there is no solid conclusions, although it may even involve the Dwemer. Nonetheless, a very, very sad find. For this next curiosity we have the Shore Shrine of Kynareth. On the map we can see it is located here to the northwest of Raven Rock. Here next to the ocean we'll spot a large rocky hill. If we use our sharp eyesight we'll notice some bolts of cloth waving in the wind. We'll soon spot a small rough pathway leading up the incline marked by a small number of cairns, adorned with pieces of fabric trustingly guiding us up to the crest. Up here beneath the safe shade of a large pine tree is a rock with several items of interest. Around the base of the rock we can find some ashiam, either planted here or growing naturally ever since the eruption of Red Mountain. There is also an albino spider egg which has no obvious origin other than a spider of course, but that spider is nowhere to be seen. There's no reason for this spider egg to be here. And most curiously is on top of the rock there is a shrine to Kynareth and a few offerings such as a trauma root and a bottle of Flynn. For those that don't know, Kynareth, also known as Kyn by the Nords and Kin by the Kothringi, the metallically skinned human tribe of Citadel, is one of the 9 divines and goddess of nature. She is the strongest of the sky spirits and is the deity of the heavens, the winds, the elements, and the unseen spirits of air. Patron of sailors and travelers, Kynareth is invoked for auspicious stars at birth and for good fortune in daily life, but generally she is seen as the embodiment of nature, so finding a shrine to her out here on a sea cliff next to the ocean with the winds blowing across her salted shrine, under a tree with ashiam growing around her feet, seems like a very fitting place for a shrine to Kynareth. Although, who placed this shrine is a bit of a mystery. Nonetheless, a beautiful spot for a goddess involved with many beautiful things. I personally want to leave it all exactly how it is and not touch anything, so let's get out of here, although I guess you could say that this place has already been altered. Next up we have the Steep Thief Chest. On the map we can see that it can be found here just to the east of Bloodskal Barrow. On the very steep and rubble covered steeps leading up from the shoreline, we'll be able to spot a large chest hidden behind a tree and nestled in a small indent within the land and the natural slopes. There is also a satchel under a nearby tree to keep it company. This type of chest is what is considered a boss level loot chest, often found at the end of very long dungeons containing fitting rewards for such a challenge. So, it is a very strange occurrence for one to be found out here in the middle of nowhere with no apparent owner. The satchel, along with the chest, will contain random leveled loot, but that still doesn't answer why this is here, and despite being slightly hidden, it's not too hard to spot. So who would place such valuables in a rather spottable location? I mean, sure, it's out of the way, but it's not hard to get to. A very strange find indeed, likely placed here by thieves as they tried to escape, and they never came back. A curious one, no doubt. For this next curiosity, we have the Drunken Miner. On the map, we can see that this is found to the south of the abandoned lodge. Once here, along with gorgeous, glimmering emerald geodes, we'll see the signs of a camp and find our friend, the miner, crushed brutally by a cart of rocks and raw metal ore. A sad sight at first, and a strange one. But how does one end up crushed underneath a rather low cart full of rocks and metal? Well, I suppose we best dig around the miner's camp and see what we can find. Just a stone's throw away underneath the shade of a tree we will find his tent, a few predictable items such as shoes, a bedroll and a bucket. But this bucket doesn't contain water, it contains bottles. And not just any bottles, but bottles of mead, the famous Nordic alcoholic beverage. Looks like he was into drinking. On the crate next to his tent, we'll see he found an emerald, likely from one of the nearby geodes. There is a strongbox here, more mead, and most importantly, he had an apple pie. The strongbox on the crate, by the way, also contains meager leveled loot. So was it the mead that led to this accident? Yes, it was. As next to his body, also half buried under rubble, we can find another mead bottle. It's likely that he was either drunk while moving his cart of rock, he lost his footing and fell, being crushed by his own load. Or he had been previously drinking and left one of the mead bottles on the ground. Then while moving the cart, he stepped on the mead bottle, slipped backwards, and proceeded to be clobbered by rocks, rubble, and gold ore. One of the two. Just take your pick. Axe. So despite him finding both emerald geodes and a gold deposit right next to his camp, he still managed to mess it up. Oh well, at least it's nothing major, as it was just a minor incident. For this next curiosity, we have the spider nest of the southwest. As we can see on the map, despite being in the southwest, it can be found to the northeast of Raven Rock. We'll have to be careful not to get tangled up in this one. In the middle of what's left of the southern forests of Solstheim, an albino spider has decided where better to place its eggs than right here on the ground. We can actually harvest these albino spider egg pods if we so desire. Luckily, there are no spiders nearby, but this is a foreshadowing of what's to come. So for now, let's leave this place and enjoy our time while we're still spider-free. Yes, now this next curiosity we have the Crater of Corruption. On the map we can see that this can be found to the northeast of Fort Frostmoth. As we know, Red Mountain's eruption spewed forth its molten heart, and Solstheim is now peppered with globular blotches of its magma. This new, unwelcome searing of Solstheim has twisted and tortured the wildlife. No finding is more apparent of its corruption than this crater. Two once beautiful, elegant Spriggans, mothers of the forest, are now branded with the charred mark of the Red Tower, forever torched and forever tortured, now an acolyte of fire and the thrall of sundered corruption. Around this crater we can find 2 burnt Spriggans, guarding this flaming pile of Red Mountain's phlegm like it was their own. Even perhaps protecting this Heartstone deposit, which has pushed its way to the surface thanks to the eroding innards of Red Mountain. We should leave this place before perhaps even we become corrupted by this fragment of the heart of a dead god. I do hope it either rains on these Spriggans to quell their suffering, or perhaps it would be kinder for us to just kill them.
That's a joke because kind is the goddess of nature, and jokes are always funnier when you have to explain them.
Moving along, for this next curiosity, we have the Bloodbone Grove. On the map we can see that it can be found here to the west of the Sunstone, as we make our way across the barren dustlands of southern Solstheim, among the butchered skeletal trees sticking out of the ash like thorns to a fabric. We can spot that something else was butchered, a massive cluster of bones and skeletons scattered along the ground like twigs on a forest floor. Not only that, but there is blood, and lots of it. We'll also see that there is a Reaver slumped up against this tree, next to which is a chest. Something tells me that this is a trap, especially with all of the blood and the skeletons. Should we see what's in the chest? Yeah, let's do it. Well, I can confirm that random level loot is what you'll find in here, and no, it's not worth dying for. But as we try to leave, the crux of the story will reveal itself. Yes, the dreaded ash spawn. The men who need some moisturizer, lip balm, and eye drops. They look exactly like how I feel when I wake up after a night out. I need water! Now, while the origins of the fear-inducing ash spawn aren't quite apparent, they definitely are connected to Red Mountain and its spreading corruption of cinders across the once beautiful land. But have the ash spawn placed this treasure here? That seems unlikely, but they have killed many people who have attempted to take the treasure for themselves. Perhaps they were once men, and after Red Mountain's eruption, they were forged anew from man to ash spawn. Now they guard where they fell, the only thing that they now know. A very strange case, and one I don't think we'll ever know the true answer to. So let's leave them be, and let them keep their meager loot. Not that it's meager, but I'm not risking my life over it. Ah yes, amongst the grim and barren tales of late we have, well, while it is actually kinda sad, it's also heartwarming. I talk, of course, of Dusty the Silt Strider. On the map we can see that she can be found here, to the northwest of Tel Mithryn. If you have played the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind, or the Morrowind chapter of the Elder Scrolls Online, you will be familiar with Silt Striders. They were the main form of transportation on Morrowind, particularly Vvardenfell. Now we can also find her keeper, Revis Savani. If we speak to him, we'll learn that Revis found Dusty's cocoon in a small cave on Vvardenfell, after the eruption of Red Mountain wiped out most of her species. He raised her into an adult, but mentions she hasn't been in traveling condition for a while, and that he is staying with her until she dies. So while Dusty is an instantly smile-inducing sight, followed by a wave of nostalgia, if we stop and think for a second, it's quite sad. Dusty is all alone, and nearing the end of her life. As far as we know, she is the last surviving Silt Strider, and the once welcoming howl of a Silt Strider now sounds like a sad call of loneliness that echoes throughout the barren graveyard around her. She's now the last of her kind, a fossil of a time past. Goodbye, Dusty. Moving on to a visually brighter note, we have the Telavnni graveyard. On the map we can see that it is here, and it can be found to the northeast of Tel Mithryn. Now down by the water's edge, strutting out into the bay, there is a small finger of land pushing out into the cold dark sea. It is walled with a casual stone border peppered with death-bell plants, which are quite fitting for a graveyard. Now at the point of the land, there is a tall pine tree marking the location clearly. There are also a number of sarcophagi, seemingly with ancestral Dunmeri patterns and symbols etched into the stone pieces. As I'm sure you've noticed, there is also an ash spawn standing next to an empty sarcophagus, clearly suggesting that the ash spawn was birthed by a dead body. That was filled with the corruption of Red Mountain, an ash zombie in a sense, and we have seen ash zombies before in the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind, so something of the sort is definitely a possibility. Now given that this graveyard is right next to Tel Mithryn, the only Telavnni mushroom tower on Solstheim, Combined with the clear dark elf motifs of the graveyard, it goes without saying that this graveyard is filled with the bodies of the Telavnni. So this Ashspawn could have very well once been a powerful wizard of the ancient house Telavnni. Now we'll also spot that one of these sarcophagi has a nameplate. If we open it, all we'll find is the Staff of Calm. Now Iladi is actually attached to a quest to do with Tel Mithryn, so we'll have to have a look around at the other graves. One just has a skull in it, which begs the question, where is the body? The other, of course, is where the Ashspawn came out of, and the fourth and final sarcophagus is quite alarming indeed. As while at first we think, oh, it's no problem, there's just a skeleton in there, that's to be expected. If we actually look at how its hand is positioned, it's heavily suggested that this person was either buried alive and was trying to push the lid off, or this person had died, was buried, and then came back to life, just like this other Ashspawn over here. Either of those are quite scary thoughts indeed. To die only to rise as an Ashspawn, a thrall of Red Mountain's corruption and seed, birthed from the fiery phlegm that it spat across the land as a reminder of its seething infection. It really is a grave situation. Let us leave this place and hope the walking dead find peace, or some sorbeline for that chapped skin. Next up we have the Overcooked miners. On the map here we can see that these guys can be found to the south of Tel Mithryn. On the basalt cliffs to the south, jutting out of the ocean, we can spot some interesting things. At the base there are some clams and a nirnroot. Up on the next tier of the cliff we have a charred corpse, a hardstone deposit and a knapsack. This knapsack contains various bits and bobs but nothing of extreme interest. But up on the top tier we can find another charred corpse, another hearthstone deposit, and a mining pick. There is also a bottle of Flynn resting on the top face of one of the basalt formations. This paints the clear picture that these two were miners, and they came to this spot specifically to mine the hardstone deposits. Now, as we know by this point, anything to do with Red Mountain and its influence on Solstheim never ends well. In this case, specifically, the hardstone deposits. Now, how exactly did these two go from being flesh to ending up looking like the result of what I cook? Well, we'll have to get a little closer to find out. As we approach the site, two Ashspawn will rise from the grey ground and be ready to protect their treasure Hearthstone. Of course, needless to say that this is the Ashspawn that dealt the final blows of howling molten ash onto these miners, who were immolated and left as burnt husks of their former selves. Let's leave this place before we get a particularly bad case of sunburn. Moving on north, for this next curiosity we have the Smouldering Spider Scar. As we can see on the map, this can be found here, to the west of Tel Mithryn. This is a rather long strip of land that has been overtly and exceptionally damaged by the wrath of Red Mountain. A wide but more notably lengthy smear of cinders, spiders and ash. Now this is where we can make a particularly amazing discovery, as the land was blasted by liquid red obsidian storms. As we have observed, it twisted the wildlife. Well, these once albino spiders can actually adapt and take on elemental attributes of their surroundings. So as this nest of spiderlings were forced to be forged in the fire, they absorbed that trait and are now fire spiders. Even more amazingly, you can actually create and use these spiders as weapons, altering their genetics to your will to build an array of varied and ferocious additions to your arsenal. No, I'm not making that up. I actually do have a full guide for that. So if the idea of such a weapon tickles your fancy, be sure to check that out. But if not, be sure to steer clear of this strip of lavaed land. Ah yes, now be sure to bring a change of underwear for this one, as we have an ambush of Apocrypha. On the map we can see that this can be found to the southeast of Fort Frostmoth. Once here, down by the grey shores, there is a small spit of land reaching gingerly out into the soft sea of ghosts. With some clams, a log, a collection of rocks, and a nirnroot singing away, it seems inviting enough. But as we approach to inspect the tranquil, stunted shoal, hello! A little curiosity from Apocrypha. Yes, that is right, a lurker is here waiting for unlucky travellers. Now, while Red Mountain has stolen the show as the greatest contention on Solstheim, this lurker reveals the true occult dissidents buried beneath the surface and infecting the very soul of Solstheim. Yes, that's right, this abomination is a creature of Apocrypha, the plane of oblivion ruled by Hermaeus Mora, the Daedric prince whose sphere is the scrying of the tides of fate, of the past and the future as read in the stars and heavens, and in whose dominions are the treasures of knowledge and memory. Also known as Hormaeus, Mora, the Woodland Man, and the Demon of Knowledge. As the main questline of the Dragonborn DLC reveals, Hermaeus Mora is up to no good. Well, I suppose that is for each of us to decide for ourselves. But this little shoreside surprise from a realm unnatural in comparison is a poetic note in reflection to what lies beneath all of Solstheim. For now, let us lurk away from this spot. Now, as we move further and further north, I do hope that you don't mind some eight-legged friends, as we have the Spindler of Kagrumez. As we can see on the map here, it can be found just to the southwest of Kagrumez. As we approach the portal and stairwell that lead down to the ancient Dwemer city of Kagrumez, a spore spot will catch our eye, a flaming log in an area with no other fire, a tree stump laden with web, a cluster of unhatched spider spawn, with 2 desiccated corpses woven into delicious meal-sized cocoons. Apparently, this one was a metalhead, even in death. Rock on. Now, by the tree base, there is a knapsack and a satchel, both of which will contain random level loot, but do give us an idea as to who these 2 dead were. Alchemists, perhaps, or exploratory scholars seeking to inspect the nearby Dwemer ruin, only to be caught up, literally, with the doings of a spider. Now, what type of spider, you ask? Well, as we saw before, the combination of flaming tree and the ruby deposit creates the indefinite makings of a flaming spider. Even the pulsating hatch sack has a fire glow to it. And sure enough, if we dare approach such an unwelcoming location, the sack will burst open, revealing a flaming spider just as we had so cleverly surmised. So before we are turned into the next meal of this blazing spawn of Mafala, let us leave this place. Now, for this next curiosity, we have the Ashfellow Reaver Encampment. As we can see on the map here, this can be found just to the southwest of Ashfallow Citadel. As we steadily make our way up into the mid-mountains of Solstheim, we'll stumble upon a stream which we can follow north, and we will follow north. On our way up, we'll spot some faint smoke wafting through the cold pine branches of the trees planted firmly on the edge of this basin. If we press on further into the brush, we'll be met curtly by a small camp of reavers, a group one does not want to stumble upon while exploring the already dangerous wilderness of Solstheim. We'll find a campfire, a chair crowned by the rump of a reaver enjoying the warmth of the flame. There is a second reaver leaning squiffily against one of the trees, having a good back scratch or wipe. Let's face it, toilet paper hadn't been invented yet. Now, there is also a chest next to the camp here. It will contain random level loot. Now, there is also an East Empire Company strongbox next to the bed, sheltered by the small sloped structure to keep the ash and snow off of the sleeper. Now, this East Empire Company strongbox contains mostly random level loot, but also houses an East Empire pendant, which can be sold for a pretty price to the right person, of course. Apart from that, this camp contains nothing too interesting, although I must say it is a mystery that these reavers are out here at all. With ash spawn, burnt spriggans, bears, and whatever else ungodly creatures stalk the ashlands at night, well, like most teenagers, the biggest risk to these reavers is their own decisions. For this next one, we have the Spriggan's Silva. While scary, still comforting. As we can see on the map here, it can be found to the south of Bujold's retreat. Here on the slopes leading down to the eastern coast of Solstheim and leading up into the high, rough terrain of Solstheim's heart, we can find a small silva, a bosque, a copse, a grove, a cluster of trees and foliage. Now, while this is a beautiful sight for sore eyes, given that most of the island has been rendered in a grey scale, this green pocket of peaceful nature is comforting to see. However, be on your toes, as there are 2 Spriggans guarding this small coppice for good reason. This slither of green is to be protected and is a rare sight on Solstheim. And secondly, these Spriggans are not burnt. So again, while Spriggans are not friendly by any means of the word, it is nice to see that some of them are left in their natural uncharred state. They also have some friends, a collection of the local wildlife, that they will influence with their Kynish powers if the need arises, i.e. if we get too close, as they will protect their precious patch of verdant botanics to their last leaf and splinter. After all, when it comes to nature, Spriggans are absolute saps. So let's leave the Spriggans to do their thing and just sleep easy, knowing that there are still some parts of Solstheim untouched by the scorching fist of the Red Tower. Ah dear. For this next one we have the Dharma Death Camp. As we can see, this can be found on the map right here to the southeast of the Thirsk Mead Hall. If we wander to the crest of the coast cliffs until we reach the more ashen and sparse sproutings of what we can only just get away with calling a forest, behind some small outcrops and in a small depression, like me in the morning, we'll find something that will give us just that, depression. A camp, seemingly abandoned. Although within a few seconds of searching, we'll find that this camp wasn't willingly abandoned. What do I mean? Bodies. 2 of them, a woman and a man, both of which are Dunmer, or more commonly, Dark Elves. Lying around their bodies are a number of spears, which, if we know anything about the inhabitants of Solstheim, we'll be able to instantly associate or link these spears to the infamous Rieklings, or Rieklings, as both pronunciations are used within the game, therefore both pronunciations are acceptable. Now the little blue goblin descendants, which I do have a video exploring and explaining their full lore, which you should check out, is very interesting stuff. They're a funny little bunch. But back to this camp, it's clear they came and raided the camp of its goods, as we can find many empty vessels. Interestingly, they didn't take the Nord mead found at the back of one of the tents. As we learn in that lore video I just spoke of, Rieklings love alcoholic beverages, or dizzy drink as they call it. However, they don't have the means to make it themselves, and only find it occasionally as a treat from raiding camps or discovering it washed up on the shores in lost crates. So for them to not take this big bunch of dizzy drink, well, that's strange. Now there is also an East Empire Company strongbox found just inside the tent, which again, curiously contains all of the contents. The reason for this is because that it was locked, and Rieklings cannot open locked things, so the goods still remain within. Most of the treasure will be random leveled loot, but there is also an East Empire pendant in here which can be sold to Fethis Alor for 500 gold. Now if we get too close to this camp, guess who turns up to say hi? That's right, the Rieklings. Turns out they were hiding in the hills and brushes around the camp, waiting for any others to return. They have even brought with them a bristleback mounted warrior. That means business. Although their appearance here isn't too surprising, as the Thirsk Mead Hall is just over the hill, which is where a large encampment of Riekling reside, I am surprised that they came back. But we don't want any trouble, so let's Riek-verse out of here? No? Nothing? Okay. Now this one is very interesting. We have Usha's Golden Floodgate. As we can see on the map, this one can be found in the hills to the north of Ashfallow Citadel. If we follow this small stream that leads up into the hills, we'll see it bends around and heads towards a crag in the rock face. Heading up the hill, unlike the water, we'll spot something curious indeed. A wooden gate. Not only that, but this wooden gate is barred from the inside. So the only way to get into this small operation is to climb up on top of the rocks around here, then jump down into the small gated off area. We'll quickly notice that things do not seem to be in order, with a fallen wooden walkway and arrows laying in the stream below. If we take a look up at the wooden area that still stands, many interesting sights will be seen. Firstly, we have a bedroll with a dead Argonian atop. Lying on his back next to him is a bow. If we look closer, we'll see there is more though. Skooma bottles. Many empty skooma bottles. And to just show off my counting abilities, there's 4 here. Up on the table there is more skooma, only these bottles are full. Thank the gods. That'll be fun later tonight. There is also an extinguished lantern, a coin purse, and a note. Over by the edge of the platform, there is a low shelf covered in gold ore and a rather large plate. Perhaps this gold was panned from the flowing stream. One might even call it a golden shower. Now in the corner there is a chest and an East Empire Company strongbox, both of which are locked. On top of the chest there is a mining pick, again suggesting that there was some gold ore extraction going on around here. But given that there are no gold ore veins nearby, I'm going to assume that the ore was panned from the stream as originally concluded. Anyway, the chest contains random leveled loot, and the strongbox contains the exact same thing except for the East Empire pendant, which as we know can be sold for a pretty handful of coin. Okay, so this Argonian named Usha, on his body, there is nothing that exactly helps us understand his story, although it's fairly obvious that he overdosed on skooma. So let's read the letter to Usha found on the table. My dear Usha, we can make it work. Do not worry about my father. He will grow to accept you in time. So will my mother and my sister. Oh, Usha, I only ask that you write and let me know that you are all right. I have convinced father to look past your lack of wealth and see you for who you really are. Come back home. No need to worry. I'll be waiting for you, my love. Signed, Monessa. Okay, wow, so Usha wasn't accepted by his lover's family because he was poor or just not wealthy enough in general. So he comes out to Solstheim, finds some gold, and then maybe gets excited about the money, treats himself to some skooma, and next minute he overdoses. It's like me with Pringles. I got paid once by YouTube, and then I popped, and I cannot stop. Anyway, back to Usha and Monessa. I did look her name up, and she does not exist in any of the other Elder Scrolls games, only mentioned in this letter here. So that letter, and the findings of this location, complete the story. Usha came for gold, he got gold, he also got some skooma, then he died, so far away from home. But this story is just some of the Usha of Solstheim. So let's carry on exploring and leave him to rest in peace. Now for this next curiosity, we have the Dragonbane Bluff. As we can see on the map, this can be found in the hills to the east of the Dwemer city of Kagrumez. Now while we progress up into the snowy regions of Solstheim, heading both north and uphill as our thighs and calves begin to burn, we'll spot something both sad and scary. Skeletons. Dragon skeletons. Lots of dragon skeletons. A frozen graveyard of dragons, so many souls absorbed, but by... oh, of course. The Temple of Miraak lies further up the hill. Miraak, the first Dragonborn, the guy that totally absorbed every single soul of all of the dragon skeletons that we see here. Makes sense. But what is almost ironic is that there is a dragon mound here, just next to the temple, where this dragon laid dormant for thousands of years, and I must say, he probably crapped himself when he finally woke up and the first thing he saw was a sea of his fallen brethren. It is interesting that Miraak hasn't come down here yet to claim his soul. This is also one of only 2 dragon mounds on Solstheim, as we'll learn later on in the video. Now up the hill, a small stroll, there is also a chest where the grass meets the stone. It is locked, and once opened will contain random level loot, as you'd expect. A dragon guarding its treasure in a sense, but also a lonely dragon surrounded by the bones of his family. So let's leave this dragon to mourn and sit in solitude and fear, as Miraak is literally just up the hill. But let's progress on through the video, as we wouldn't want this to drag on. Am I right? Drag on? For this next curiosity, we have the Gems of Zenithar. As we can see on the map here, it can be found right here, just in the hills to the northwest of Frostmoon Crag. Tucked away on these snow-laden slopes, we can find several valuable mineral and gemstone deposits and geodes. But a small way down at the base of this frosty descent is a shrine, lit eternally with a candle flickering within. This is a shrine to Zenithar, with 2 corundum ore next to it. Now for those unfamiliar, Zenithar is one of the 9 divines, and is the god of work, labor, communications, commerce, and the provider of our ease. So to have this shrine placed here amongst a congregation of sapphire geodes and rare minerals such as corundum and silver seems very appropriate. Although a beautifully and logically appropriate place for a shrine to Zenithar, it does make me wonder who on Earth, or who on Nirn, is coming up here to praise Zenithar. I think it was likely placed here by some of the Imperial or Legion settlers just over 200 years ago. Anyway, regardless of its purpose or placement, it is a gorgeous spot to praise the god of wealth, Zenithar. Yes, I do hope you like unexpected things, as for this next curiosity we have the Solstheim Surprise. As we can see on the map, it can be found here just to the southeast of the Water Stone, overlooking the sea to the west. Perched precariously on a quaint timber stage, we'll clearly observe that it's weighed down by many crates and barrels. Perhaps this is a stowaway area that some of the local reavers use, although if you wanted to keep your loot haul safe, this would most certainly not be the place for it. Smells fishy to me. Not literally, just in the sense that there's a large collection of valuables in the middle of nowhere, dangerously kept on a snowy mountain slope, so naturally, let's check it out. As we slowly slink down the hill to eye the suspicious setting, our mistrust manifests itself. Yes, the classic Riekling and a barrel trap. These pesky little munchkins have placed a seemingly profitable stockpile of items as bait, to draw in those of a curious nature, only to kill them, then steal their valuables. Oh, the irony. Now there even seems to be some Riekling hiding in the snow just behind us as well. We're surrounded. Now here there is a chest which will actually contain loot, randomized of course, so if you do come out on top of this fight, the inspection of the area will be worth it in the end. Now there is also an East Empire Company strongbox on one of the crates. Again, for the most part it will contain loot, which will be determined by your character's level. However, there will be an East Empire pendant in here, which again can be sold for a few scrumptious septims back at Raven Rock. So now we know the truth of this place. The Rieklings have played their little trick, resulting in a barrel of laughs. So let's get out of here. Okay, for this next curiosity, we'll be heading back down to the coast to find the Catch of the West. As we can see on the map here, it is located to the west of Damp Hall Mine. Here, on a slightly less ashy shore when compared to those of the south, on this small spit of land thrusting out into the small navy bay, we will first spot a boat, a telltale sign that there is more to inspect close by. We'll see some rocks sitting in a Zenish fashion and littered with some finer details to this simple story. We've got a pair of boots leaning lazily against an open-topped wooden crate containing within which are several fresh fish, species unknown, which as we'll notice were more than likely caught with this fishing pole here. Now on the other side of the same rock there is another wooden box containing 4 ash yams, ripe and ready to eat. Nothing better than green eggs and yam. I don't actually know what the relevance of the yams are when it comes to fishing, but it might just paint a broader picture of a simple traveller harvesting various food types to cook up a delicious meal, rather than the yams being related to the fishing specifically. Either way, at this point, I'm just yamming on. Now, up on top of the rocks, holding this whole scene together, there are 2 bottles. One is a bottle of Sheen, and the other a bottle of Mazti, both of which are classic alcoholic beverages of Morrowind. So it's very likely that this fisherman or fisherwoman is, or as their fate is currently unknown, was a Dunmer. It seems to be a very simple case of someone coming here to fish and relax. What happened to that person? Well, given their boat and all of their belongings remain, when it comes to explaining this curiosity, well, it's quite a catch. Sailing on through the list, for this next curiosity we have Lost at Shore. As we can see on the map, this can be found right here in the water to the west of the Water Stone. On the shores of the beach there are 2 small boats pulled up onto the sand, and then some way off of the coast there is a larger ship anchored at sea. So firstly, there is no way to get onto this boat or this larger ship, and even if there were, there is absolutely nothing on it. There's no treasure, there's no enemies, there's no friends, there's no way to get down inside the boat and have a look around. It's just a static object to be looked at. Now back to the shore, it's clear that a number of people came to Solstheim in the larger boat, then paddled ashore in these 2 smaller vessels. This is all well and good, but it's strange to me that it's just been abandoned. There are no reavers or bandits or anything guarding this. While there are some camps and enemy bases around the area, it's not clear if any of them own these boats, and a ship is a valuable thing, which again has just been left completely unguarded. So the origin, owners, and abandonment of these boats, and more specifically the ship, sure is a mystery. We'll just have to see how this pans out. For now, let's just wave this one goodbye. Up Netch, we have the Netch Falls. As we can see on the map, this one can be found to the north of the Waterstone. Flowing rapidly down from the mountains above, fueled by snow runoff and melt, there is a raging waterfall, cascading furiously off of the stone cliffs and into the sea, creating plumes of mist and engulfing waves of moisture. The now local Netchers have taken a liking to this area and use it to bathe or shower themselves under the falling aqua. They are probably trying to wash off some of that damn ash from Red Mountain. It makes an absolutely beautiful spot to view the sunset, as the golden flaming glow of Magnus increases as it descends to the horizon for sleep. The warm honey and rose flavors of the light palette mix with the haze of the falls, creating clouds of ephemeral and prismatically autumn vapors, a picture to be painted if ever there was one. While the Netch float through the air and soak in the warm and refreshing waters, a lovely snapshot of the beauty that the Elder Scrolls universe can create is presented. So now, let's move on to the Netch Curiosity. Oh yes, now for this curiosity we have the Stalhrim Hecatomb. As we can see on the map, it is found just here to the northwest of Whitebridge Barrow. Pushing our way up into the frost-bitten mountains from the warmer shores down below, we'll be faced with a number of steep and jagged crags. If we follow this one around, a narrow passageway will reveal itself. Walking up on through the snow, we'll soon observe that it's just a dead end, and just before we turn back around, some ruins will catch our eye. If we duck our heads down into the subterranean sepulchre, we'll be confronted by pure profusion of permafrosted portals of the dead, a huge circular burial site of ancient Nord warriors, now frozen not only in reality but in time, by the precious material known as Stalhrim. This is the largest concentration of the material in the game, containing 30 pieces of Stalhrim mined from 10 sarcophagi. A strange place for it, and also a strange place for such a massive gravesite like this. If anything, I would expect to find such a place deep within an extensive Nordic ruin, rather than an isolated area all the way out here in the mountains. The entirety of the pit is also enchanted by these dancing blue waves of ephemeral frost, a strange place indeed, but an excellent source of Stalhrim if you ever need any. Crawling on through, for this next curiosity we have the Arachnid Hatch. As we can see on the map, it can be found to the south of Whitebridge Barrow, just across the snowfield outside the entrance to Whitebridge Barrow, strangely enough. Now on the other side of this small river that forms here, we'll spot a small wooden shack marked by the waggling blue bolt of cloth. This small timber structure is surrounded by sapphire geodes and albino spiders. Now, not only are there albino spiders, but because the spider pods were laid next to these sapphire geodes, the spiders within have absorbed the frosty attributes of the sapphire. So when hatched, they aren't albino spiders at all, but they are frost spiders. Similarly to how we found the flame spiders down south. Again, be sure to check out my guide if you are interested in using these spiders as grenade-like weapons, which you can do. Now inside the shed, there is a small trapdoor that leads down into the experimental chambers of Whitebridge Barrow where the spiders are created. But again, if you wish to explore that fully, I do have videos covering that. So for now, I think, like most people, I'm not too fond of our little 8-legged friends here, so let's move away slowly, being sure to not touch any of the webs. Oh, now this one is very interesting and actually a throwback to the Blood Moon expansion for the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind. It's Hrothmund's Bane. As we can see on the map here, this curiosity can be found just here to the northwest of Hrothmund's Barrow. As we'll notice, there are a number of stone pillars lying on their sides, almost creating a wall, but not really in any useful manner. There also appears to be No shape or sense to it? Well, what we'll need is a bird's eye view. As we pan up, the form of a wolf will reveal itself. This is known as Hrothmund's Bane. In the Barrow nearby lies the remains of Hrothmund the Red, the first chieftain of Thirsk, who was killed by a wolf called Ondyeach. Hrothmund's Barrow now lies at the mouth of a great stone wolf. Pretty cool, huh? I mean, the more you know. Up next we have the raided Reaver camp. As we can see on the map, here it is located just to the southwest of Hrothmund's tomb. So up the rather steep, snow-peppered hill, resting on a small area that flattens out a tad, we'll find the remains of a camp, with a fading fire, now just a pile of ash with a weak plume of smoke wafting away from it, making the location easier to spot. Here we'll find a collection of curious things to inspect closely. But before I go in, there is that damn troll again. I am literally being trolled by a troll while filming this video. I've been taking shots around this area for about 5 minutes, and this damn troll keeps walking through all of the shots. Honestly, here you go, there's a bonus curiosity. The trolling troll. Get out of my sight, troll, by the divines. Anyway, back to the camp. So firstly, we'll notice that there is a dead Reaver slumped against this here rock. Scattered around him are a number of spears. Once again, we know exactly who these belong to, those damn Riekling. Now if we look around this camp, we'll also notice that all of the barrels and crates have been marked with the signature tribal symbols of the Riekling. This is undoubtedly their doing. They have also made some strange decorations, like giving this skull a hat, which is another common tradition of theirs. Amongst the various boxes and wooden vessels, there is a chest and a strongbox, both of which contain random leveled loot. But it is strange that the Rieklings have raided this camp but left all of the goodies. They are hoarders of the highest degree. Why kill the Reaver and not reap? Well, if we approach the camp, sure enough, surprise! The Rieklings have been hiding in the snow, waiting for other Reavers to return, or perhaps even for just unlucky adventurers like ourselves to come and inspect the curious sights. Ah, but this is what Rieklings do, be pesky little hooligans of the frozen wastes. And just sometimes they get their just desserts, as we'll discover as we move on to the next curiosity. So for this next one, we have the Moesring Pass, away. As we can see on the map, this one can be found just here to the north of the Moesring Pass. So here, at Moesring Pass, there is a village of Rieklings. Now up at this little mountain peak next to Moesring Pass, right next to their little camp, they have marked the location with a flag signifying their claim to the area and letting everyone around know how superior their climbing skills are and so on. Now if we take a closer look, however, we'll see that one of them slipped. At least it would seem that way. There are no items or signs that paint a clearer picture. There is also nothing on his corpse that suggests subterfuge. It would also seem that this little guy came up here and fell on some slippery rocks, took a tumble and shattered his little blue cranium on the stone. Maybe he went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Hell, his name might have been Jack. I would assume he came up here alone because I don't think the others would have left him up here. Maybe he was murdered by another Riekling, although it doesn't seem quite far away enough from the rest of the village to be a subtle spot for Rikicide. Now it might be an Easter egg or a nod to climbers in real life who almost made it to the top of great mountains. I know we've seen similar nods and Easter eggs in Skyrim. Anyway, let's leave this little blue corpse to rest in as much peace as it can find up here in the hard winter winds of Moesring Pass. Moving on through and up, we have the Mineral Troll. As we can see on the map, it can be found right here to the south of Hrothmund's tomb. Here at the top of this mountain peak, separating the eastern and western snowlands of Solstheim, we have this spiny rock ridge jutting out of the snow. Here stands a frost troll, where he guards what is precious to him. And what is precious to trolls? Anonymity on the internet. No, these precious minerals and metals. Running along the seam of this rock face, we have 2 sapphire geodes, a gold ore, and a quicksilver ore vein. I highly doubt that this troll knows the value of what it guards, and it's likely that it just was attracted to shiny things, like my forehead. So let's just leave this young chap to it. For this next curiosity, we have the Bloodied Stairs. As we can see on the map here, it can be found to the northwest of the snow-clad ruins. Here we can find a set of crooked, ice-covered, pendulous stairs, leading up and over a high mountain ridge. The stairs are frequently patrolled by trolls, so we have that classic CCC situation where we have a patrol of trolls patrolling. What's interesting is that there is blood, and lots of blood, splattered and smeared up and up and up the stairs. Right at the top there is a stone archway where we can find various bloodied bones and pieces of human remains, a terrible and tremendously nasty scene to stumble upon while exploring the Northern Realms. Now the logical conclusion would be that the trolls did this. We've seen this kind of thing before, nothing out of the ordinary for a troll to do such a thing. However, if we follow the blood over the hill and down towards the Nordic ruin, the amount of blood increases and the amount of human fragments, for a lack of a better phrase, also increases. Now this trail of gore leads down the hill where we will find a bunch of men in only trousers? Don't be fooled, as you'll hardly be able to bear the truth of it. This is not a group of nudists, this is a clan of werebears. Oh yes, they slew a number of others and left a trail of entrails leading right back down to their home, making finding these culprits quite easy. Now before they start to think that we ate their porridge, let's get out of this bear den. Oh yes, quite an interesting one. Up next we have the Alchemist's Fall. As we can see on the map here, it is found to the east of the snow-clad ruins. Here, cascading from the pool next to the werebear lair, we have a huge waterfall, spilling its precious snow runoff liquids into the more fertile lands down below. Now strangely, over on the jagged, rugged and uninviting rock shelf that stands proudly next to the stream of surging snow-cold ice water, we might just spot something eye-catching, slumped morbidly in a small crag. There is a skeleton here, which is kind of interesting, but with all skeletons, it's all about what lies around them. And in this case, there are 3 apothecary satchels suggesting that this person, whomever he or she may have been, was an alchemist, or an apothecary, which is, a potato, same thing. These 3 satchels will contain randomized alchemical ingredients and reagents, so finding a dead alchemist, it's not too weird. What is weird is the placement. There are literally no harvestable plants or interesting alchemical ingredients near here, especially high up in the cliff ledges. Like, what on the Divine's green nern was this person doing? Running from something perhaps? Maybe trying to escape the werebears of snow-clad ruins? The truth to this green-thumbed mort pile shall remain a mystery. A snowy, alchemical, cold, rocky, and lonely, sad mystery. Moving down from the chilling mid-mountains of Solstheim and down towards the eastern coast, we have up next the Sandy Slopes Stash. As we can see on the map here, it can be found to the north of Bujold's retreat, so heading down a refreshingly sandy and grassy hill towards the shore, or beach as we may call it, we'll spot some rocks in the way. Now that's no good for our swim, we'll naturally just want to go around them, but less travelled paths yield great rewards, as nestled amongst the brown and beige scrub shrubs, there is not only a chest but a few coin purses as well. Not a bad find at all for a day at the beach, as I normally only come away with sunburn and a sting from some ungodly Australian sea creature. Now the chest will contain random leveled loot, so the higher your level the better the loot, of course. Now finding a treasure chest tucked away on the shores of a mysterious and forgotten island is cool, and all. But who put these here? I feel like leaving coin sacks, especially in the open, is a bit weird when you could just put them in the chest. It was likely a place where the intention of it was only to stay here for a short period of time. Now there is a group of people down at Bujold's retreat who are the people from Thirsk Mead Hall who have recently been kicked out by the Riekling who will now take over and rule the place like gremlins. But perhaps those people from Thirsk Mead Hall placed this here to hide it from them? But if that's the case, they failed because we found it. Now before we stray too far away from this spot, the very next curiosity can be found just on the other side of these rocks, and it sure has me stumped. As for this next curiosity, we have the Stumped Horker. Yes, a Horker. Stumped. Literally. This has to be one of the weirdest finds I've ever come across so far in my CCC career. There is a Horker, a dead Horker, who appears to have died from starvation. There's no blood around him, he doesn't seem to have been in a fight, but we will notice that his little flipper thing got wedged into the tree stump. Now, how this happened exactly, well, that's just one hell of a question. Maybe the tide was high, he got washed up, his flipper thing got jammed in the tree stump, and the rest is history. But I gotta say, that's a pretty grim way to die, just being trapped and unable to escape. It's like dying decades into a marriage. Interestingly though, if we rummage around the contents of the Horker, there is an amethyst inside him. Maybe he was an Aquarius, betrayed by the sea. The amethyst is the gemstone of the Aquarius, in case you don't know. I only know that because I'm an Aquarius. Well, as sad as it is, we've got to push on towards the tail end of this, just like the Horker. For this next curiosity, we have the Skull Skeleton. As we can see on the map, it can be found right here, just to the north of the Skull Village. At the thick, frozen and forested base of the cliffs to the north of the Skull Village, we can find something rather curious. While skeletons at this point are rather quotidian, it's the skeleton's proximity to the village that makes it strange. So tucked away in a tiny little opening revealing a frigid and frosted glade, we have a chest, a human skeleton, and what I can only assume to be a horse skeleton, as I do not believe that there are mammoths on Solstheim. And if there were mammoths, this would be an awfully small mammoth, so again, fairly sure that this other skeleton here is a horse. There is also an iron sword lying on the ground. So why is this weird? Well, it's right next to the Skull Village. You'll think that if there was a skeleton right next to your town, and in plain sight, someone would have noticed it by now, but apparently not. A horse and a sword suggests this person wasn't armed and mounted. It might actually be some goofy nod to the horse cliff climbing glitches or abilities one can instigate in Skyrim, as all these skeletons and stuff can be found at the bottom of the base of a cliff. So was this an ancient Nord warrior, a skull warrior perhaps? Maybe this was an outsider and considered cursed, so the skull never touched the skeleton. There are many possibilities, but for some reason something is just not right here. I can feel it in my bones, and his bones. As aforementioned, there is a chest here. Of course, it will contain random level loot. A strange find indeed, and for some reason just doesn't sit well with me. A skeleton with a sword and a horse in a chest, right next to a village. It's very, very curious indeed. For this next curiosity, we have the Ransacked Reavers. As we can see on the map here, it can be found to the south of Frostmoth. After we stumble through the icy, crystallized shrubs and plants around, we'll come out into a lovely bay, and right here there is a boat and a camp. Contrasting savagely with the snow, we'll see blood and two bodies, one male and one female, again both Dunmer, and both Reavers. Scattered around both of their corpses like kitchen utensils when I cook, we'll find spears. Riekling spears. Surprise, surprise, the Rieklings. Well, I'll give you one guess who shows up when we enter the camp to inspect it a little closer. That's wrong. You're wrong. No one shows up. This is the one time the Rieklings aren't waiting in hiding around their slain foes. I do believe the reason for this is that Frostmoth, the cave just to the north, is an extensive Riekling base that they have. So they all probably just went into the cave rather than sitting around under the snow outside. Sadly, there are no chests or anything of interest at this camp, so we'll just bid these Reavers farewell and congratulate them on being so boring that the Rieklings didn't even stick around. For this next curiosity, we have a sandy grave. As we can see here on the map, it can be found right to the east of Frostmoth. Here, on the final strand of golden sand washed up and battered, are two skeletons and a chest. A strange place for them. Likely they were on a boat and became shipwrecked, swam ashore with what belongings they could take with them, namely this chest. Perhaps they drowned and all of this just washed up naturally here. Maybe they made it to shore and died of the bitter cold of northern Solstheim. Regardless of the story or the past, all we have now are two shadows of a tale that once was. A canvas with faded paint, all that is left are dull strokes, two lingering figures and their chest. Inside we will be able to find random leveled loot, and nothing that helps us understand what this once was. A sad, shadowy, sandy and rather inconclusive curiosity, but one I'm sure will remain where we found it for many, many years to come. Maybe one day their story will be discovered. But I do know one thing. A sandy grave, this is Anakin Skywalker's most feared way of dying. Ah, yes. Now we have an absolute classic. In fact, it's so classic that I covered this in my Dragonborn DLC Easter egg video. Be sure to check that out if Solstheim does interest you. Anyway, back to the here and the now. We have, well, an island to explore. We'll soon see what it has to reveal. As we can see on the map, this location can be found right here, and it is actually the northernmost curiosity in this video and perhaps ever. So the first thing you'll notice as we swim to this island and way out north into the frozen mists and the sea of ghosts is this boat adorned with a circular amber Dunmary lantern which ever so magically illuminates the waves as they pummel this small vessel, rocking it back and forth in the wintry sea. Inside the boat we will find various items: a knapsack, a sack, a coin purse, a satchel, a chest, a few oars, and an East Empire Company strongbox. The knapsack contains random level loot along with the chest. However, the East Empire Company strongbox, while it does contain mostly random level loot, as you would come to expect at this point, it also contains an East Empire pendant, which we can sell for 500 septums back in Raven Rock. So now, let's find the owner of this boat. As soon as we walk ashore, we will spot an abundance of Nirnroot. Nothing too strange, but it is notable. Ah, yes, okay. The Spriggans are back. One of only 2 locations on Solstheim where there are normal Spriggans still alive, opposed to those twisted and igneous ones we found down south. They may just be protecting this small slice of Solstheim, keeping the natural balance and everything in check, although I must admit there are a large number of them. More Spriggans than we'll normally ever find in one spot. Oh dear, or oh Dunmer. I think we found the owner of the boat, a Dunmer or Dark Elf alchemist, lying face down in a pool of blood. No doubt the Spriggans attacked him and killed him when he stepped onto their territory. But what is this? More Nirnroot? Massive Nirnroot, giant Nirnroot. Alchemically the same, but the size is 3, 4, 5 times the scale of a standard Nirnroot. Incredible, and likely a throwback to the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Easter egg in which 4 giant Nirnroot can be found. Wow, no wonder there are so many Spriggans protecting this place. It holds a wondrously rare giant Nirnroot. But if we head to the center of the island, we'll find the Mother Lode, and the mother of all Spriggans to guard it, a Spriggan matriarch, the mother of the forest, standing proud and guard of this precious circle of giant Nirnroots. Now if you do follow me on Instagram you'll already know this, but I never realized before how big the Spriggan matriarchs are. They are massive. They are like literally double the height of your character. An imposing sight indeed, and definitely a worthy protector for such a rare natural wonder, the giant Nirnroot. So let us leave these wardens of Nirnbees so they may continue to conserve the corners of creation and sustain a pure, unadulterated natural balance in the pockets of kynic peace that still remain on Nirn. For this next curiosity, we have the Frozen Dragon Shoals. As we can see here on the map, this is located on a small island far to the north of Solstheim and to the northeast of the Glacial Cave. Now again, this is very interesting because it is the second of only 2 dragon mounts that can be found on Solstheim, the other being the Dragonbane Bluff that we saw earlier on in the video. This one makes a lot more sense that there would be an alive dragon here, as it's nowhere near the Temple of Merak. Despite being alive, this sure is a lonely place to reside. You may have noticed a rather looming ancient Nordic arcolith, at the base of which is a bag of bones next to a hardwood exchequer. Inside the chest will be random level loot, as to be expected. The hawkers have also gathered here to inspect the scene. Now I would guess that given the dragon mound is here, and the ancient Nordic structure, that this skeleton was once a dragon priest. Not as we know them today, but an actual dragon priest who would worship the dragons. Regardless, their time is long past, and he or she did not live on to become one of the famous dragon priests of Skyrim and or Solstheim. So they shall remain forever, resting on this island. For this next curiosity, we have another one located on a northern island, more specifically the Riekling Reserve Island. As we can see on the map here, this is located to the due north of Haknir's Shoal. Here we can find possibly the biggest outdoor Riekling settlement. While they do have some villages outside, they tend to be quite small, and they reserve the massive cities to be built within caves because they're a lot safer. And they can also hoard all of their valuables, in inverted commas, because they normally just hoard absolute trash. They can keep all of that stuff safer within a cave. And with that said, going completely against what I just explained, this island, it seems to be some kind of reserve or a storage area for the Riekling, as they have huge amounts of treasure here, barrels, crates and the like. Because of this, there are many patrols, systematically assuring the island's security. Maybe because the Rieklings are out here on an island, they get large amounts of flotsam for goods and items which are washed ashore after a shipwreck. Now, there are a number of chests, sacks, barrels, knapsacks and the like here, and in fact, they are in such a great number that we won't even run through all of them. There's just a whole bunch of treasure to be found here. And as you guessed it, all of these contain random leveled loot. There is also an East Empire Company strongbox here that will contain an East Empire pendant which you can sell for 500 gold. Apart from that, I think we'll leave these pesky little fellows to do their thing, although why there are so many of them on this island with so much gear, that is a mystery. Perhaps they are preparing for the Fourth Reich. For this next curiosity, we have one that is very, very easy to miss, namely Halrad Falls. As we can see on the map, it can be found here to the northwest of the headwaters of Halrad. Now, if we head upstream from these freezing pools that collect, making their way down to meet the sea, we'll run into a series of streaming falls. While boasting big drops, they flow down peacefully. Well, up on the top tier, in which the very first snow runoff waterfall forms and rushes down into this crag, forming an enclosed stream, we can spot something down there. A chest and a skeleton, and a strange place for them. Apart from that, there is no evidence or clues as to who this person was or where the treasure came from. If we take a look in the chest, we'll be able to find a variety of goodies, provided you are of a high enough level. Of course, they will be good because it's random level loot. Now, I was thinking that maybe this skeleton and this chest were washed from a deep, subterranean Nordic burial chamber within the mountain. As we spoke of earlier, this waterfall simply spawns from the snow here, suggesting that there is an underground stream that could have washed this fellow and his chest out. I've come to the underground stream conclusion, as the waterfall seems to be far too forceful and ferocious to simply just be snow runoff. Anyway, we'll never be able to confirm exactly where this skeleton and the treasure came from, but I do suspect that that is exactly what happened. They were washed out from an ancient tomb deep within the mountain. For this next curiosity, we'll be heading back down to the water's edge by the coast, where we can find Darkwater Pond. As we can see on the map, this can be found to the north, west of Haknir's shoal. Here, in a tiny inlet, there is a pond. It lights up beautifully during the sunrise, reflecting the refreshingly warm colours of life across the frozen realm. 3 nirnroot grow here, suggesting it is an area of purity and natural balance, as they sit and ring away singing the songs of Lorcan. Now, as tranquil, peaceful, calm, harmonious and placid as this pond looks, do not become too entranced, as if we dare step foot into the pond, our second greeting from Apocrypha. Of all places, this beast of Hermaeus Mora and his black, wriggling tentacle realm filled with alluvium of knowledge oozing its way into Mundus, and of all places, this foul spawn, the Lurker, takes its hiding hole in this beautiful little pond filled with nirnroot and natural celebration of Mundus, from which this Lurker is not. By all means, please come here and remove this foul creature from this spiritual Zen garden of ringing nirnroot. Moving north for this next curiosity, we have the Karstag Trove. As we can see on the map here, this can be found just to the east off of Castle Karstag Caverns. Plummeting down viciously from the spiring Castle Karstag and the defrosting snow peaks of Solstheim is Karstag Falls, eventually making its way down to the Sea of Ghosts in the north. If we follow the narrow mouth of the flow back from the sea and towards the fall point of the water flow, we'll be able to spot an object being showered with the harsh, bitter cold water falling from above. A chest of unknown origin, likely washed from some crypt or perhaps even Castle Karstag itself. If we manage to pry this bad boy open, we'll find a healthy array of random leveled loot. I find the notion unlikely that someone intentionally placed this chest here. It's not easy to get to, and let's face it, Northern Solstheim has a mega low population. I doubt someone would put this thing here. It's also at risk of being washed away by a strong downflow from the waterfall, or being washed away by a strong tide. So again, I would sensibly conclude that this treasure was washed down from some higher tomb many years ago, rather than being placed here intentionally. Yes, now following in a very similar fashion, we have the Crab Creek Cache. As we can see on the map, this can be found just to the southeast of North Shore Landing. So here at North Shore Landing, there is an abandoned dock that I assume was once used by the Legion settlers roughly 200 years ago, that we helped instigate in the Blood Moon expansion for the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind. Since then, a whole bunch of mudcrabs have made this place their home. We'll also pry a petite rivulet babbling its way casually down from the fall, down to the ocean shores amidst which the mudcrabs frolic. Now, if we trace this brook all the way back up to the base of the waterfall once again, a chest. Once you crack it open like a cold one with the boys, we'll find it contains random leveled loot. Now, although the last chest we found at the base of the waterfall, I concluded was washed down from an unseen tomb or something of the sort, this one, I do believe, was likely placed here intentionally, as it's right near where people used to live and populate, and it's also very accessible while still remaining hidden. So I think that one of the old dock hands used to steal bits and pieces from incoming shipments and stow them away here. It's nice and close, easy to get to, and would probably never be found by any of the other workers. So it's the perfect place to store hot items. Hot in a legal sense and not a temperate sense. Sailing on out to the northwest, we'll be making our way to a little spot called the Frozen Horker Ruins. As we can see on the map here, it can be found to the northwest of Castle Karstag Ruins. Floating around in the nether abyss of the ocean and all existence only with the legendary Atmora over the horizon, these icebergs are the last bastions of Tamriel. Naturally, some Horker have made home here. I suppose they decided it was an ice place to live. But there is something here, unbelievably more notable than Horkers. Yes, that is right. We have some Nordic ruins, or the remains of some anyway. The ruins of some ruins, I suppose you could say. There are 3 standing stones which border the rim of the flat ice bed. Then there is the classic carved stone dragon monolith, but more interestingly, there are 2 sarcophagi closed with stalgrim, which, as we learned earlier, is a strange material, which was highly valued by ancient Nords and is still valued to this day. There is also a rather powerful weapon here. Although I assume that it is the result of scaling loot, nonetheless, it's an awesome find. Now, while a small little bundle of ancient Nordic culture is to be expected on Solstheim, what has really got my interest is the fact that it's all encased within an iceberg. So I do believe that the most likely series of events to result in such a strange sight is that the ancient Nords of Solstheim built a burial tomb within a massive glacial wall of the northern ice shelves found on Solstheim. In the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind's Blood Moon expansion, we did see examples of this. The local Nords building tombs or areas of existence within giant towers of ice. So it's likely that's what's happened. Then over hundreds, perhaps even thousands of years, the glacier melted, the towers of ice split, fell into the Sea of Ghosts and splintered into historical fragments which flow beyond the northern shores of Solstheim. This frozen Horker ruin being one of them. An amazing find, and an almost eerily remote and outlying curiosity. Thousands of years of history half buried and frozen, floating, flirting with the edge of the known world, ready to be swallowed whole by the unknown seas at any storm to the north. An amazing find, for sure. Alright, I gotta admit, this is one of my favorites throughout this video, purely based on its comedic merits. So for this curiosity, we have the Riekling Locksmith. As we can see here on the map, it can be found to the north of Bristleback Cave. Now, coming up from the lapping sea, upon the shore where the sand meets the stone, we'll find a chest. Straight away, it's a very unique chest, as it has been turned into a wooden pincushion with 7 Riekling spears sticking out of it like a porcupine. We'll also note that we have the classic cultural signature of the Riekling, with these blue tribal markings. Now you might be thinking, was this target practice? Did this chest do something to the Riekling? Why on earth would they do this? Well, throughout this video, you may have noticed that anywhere in which Rieklings raided and looted, the only things left unplundered were locked chests and boxes. Why is this? Because Rieklings don't know how to pick locks. So, hilariously, they found this chest, could not open it, and went straight to their unique lockpicking technique and filled this poor wooden box with spears and painted it blue. Yeah, that'll teach it. Now, yes, it is locked, and once we do open it, there will be loot scaled appropriately for your level. So the Riekling didn't miss out on too much treasure, but I love their solution to a problem. Rain spears upon it and painted blue. Maybe I'll try that with my taxes. For the penultimate curiosity, we have the Forgotten Soldier's Spoils. As we can see on the map here, this one can be found just to the south of Castle Karstag Caverns. So now that we've explored the base of Karstag Falls earlier on in the video, we're going to follow it all the way up to its streaming spring point, which we can see seems to be a shallow cavern opening out of the mountainside like a lazily gaping mouth, fanged with icicles and spewing forth the elixir of life, water. As amazing as this is, we'll notice off to the side there is a few items of interest. There is a chest which holds items relevantly reflecting your character's level, but this chest is accompanied by an iron sword and a steel helmet, as if a soldier or a warrior laid down their arms and left to pursue a more pious life. Maybe this is a tribute to a great warrior or someone's forefather, although I feel an altar or a shrine would be a more appropriate place to do such a thing rather than a chest. So that aspect of this find is quite interesting, but secondly, here? Why here? I suppose that was the point, to hide this meager collection of items in a place where no one would find them. But who placed these here? And for what purpose? That truly is a mystery, but I've got a feeling that whoever it was are now in Sovereign Guard. And ultimately, we have a lovely little exploration-based curiosity to finish off the list, the 3 mountain peaks. So, the 3 highest mountain peaks on Solstheim are actually locations that can be discovered only by actually reaching the absolute peak of each. Even using console commands will not reveal their location or markers on the map. So these can be really hard to get to, as there is no paths and you literally just have to jump your way up to the top of each. One slip and it's all over. You'll fall to your death. So firstly we have Mortrag Peak, which once reached it will be marked here on your map in the northwestern region of Solstheim. Secondly, we have Freit Peak, which once reached will be marked here on your map just to the east of Mortrag Peak. And finally we have the Moesring Peak, which once reached will be marked here on your map just to the south of the other 2. So now we have climbed, reached and discovered all 3 of the highest peaks of Solstheim's mountains. We can now undoubtedly call ourselves the ultimate explorers of Solstheim. And what a perfect way to end off a video which is all about just that, exploring all of the hidden secrets and things to see on Solstheim. And with that final unforgettable peak in curation, the curating of curious curiosities within Solstheim has been completed. I do hope that you have thoroughly enjoyed this utterly unique region of Tamriel, with its ancient ruins, unique wildlife, frost-bitten peaks, glacial waterfalls, frost-showered bosks, ice-cold babbling brooks, blasted ashlands, and the igneous smouldering spores of Red Mountain. I do hope I have been able to show you something new that you did not know existed on Solstheim. I have certainly discovered some new and interesting things. So whether they were old friends or new acquaintances, I do hope that you have enjoyed the curious curiosities of Solstheim. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Camel, and I do hope that you have thoroughly enjoyed the Curating Curious Curiosities video for the ancient and nostalgic region of once Skyrim and now technically Morrowind, Solstheim. If you did enjoy this video and you would like to see more videos similar to this one, please consider subscribing. It helps me know that people are interested in these kind of videos and in the long run will result in more of them. And if you do enjoy the CCC series, please feel free to check out the links in the description. These of course will lead you directly to the Curating Curious Curiosities videos that I've already done for Skyrim. If you did learn something new in this video or died a little inside from one of the puns, please leave a like, I appreciate it greatly. If you have any theories, backstories, imaginings, or explanations for any of these curious curiosities, please leave a detailed explanation of what your thoughts are in the form of a comment down below. I'm very interested in hearing some of your explanations for some of these ever so strange and curious finds on Solstheim. I'm sure the community's collective mind power will be much greater than mine, so I'm sure together that we can come up with all of the backstories for these strange findings. Down there in the old description you can also find links to my social media. Be sure to follow me on Instagram and Twitter, and if you'd like to become one of my heroic patrons, you can of course support the channel on Patreon. As I'm sure you know, all of my time and energy goes into making these videos that I create for you to enjoy, so your support is most appreciated and welcomed in any and all forms. So thank you very much for watching, thank you for supporting the channel, and I will see you very shortly in the next video. I'll see you there soon.